My name is Sarah Mitchell, and I'm 28 years old. I live in a small apartment in Portland, Oregon, working as a graphic designer for a local marketing firm. The rain was pattering against my window that Tuesday morning in November when my phone rang. I almost didn't answer. I didn't recognize the number. Hello, is this Sarah Mitchell? The voice was professional, cold. Yes, this is Sarah. Who's calling? This is Jennifer Walsh from Walsh & Associates law firm in Chicago. I'm calling regarding your mother, Margaret Mitchell. My heart stopped. I hadn't spoken to my mother in 3 years, not since the big fight that tore our family apart. The silence stretched between us like an ocean. I'm sorry to inform you that your mother passed away yesterday evening. She had a heart attack at her home. The words hit me like a physical blow. I sank into my desk chair, staring out at the gray Portland sky. I don't understand. How did you get my number? Your mother left specific instructions with our firm. There are some legal matters we need to discuss. But first, I wanted to inform you about the funeral arrangements. When is the funeral? This Saturday at 2 p.m. at St. Michael's Catholic Church on the north side. However, Miss Mitchell, I need to tell you something else. Your siblings have made it clear that they don't want you to attend. I felt like I'd been slapped. What do you mean they don't want me to attend? She was my mother too. I'm simply relaying what they've communicated to us. Your brother David and sister Lisa have been handling all the arrangements. They feel your presence would be disruptive. The phone felt heavy in my hand. Outside, the November rain was getting heavier, matching the storm brewing in my chest. Mrs. Walsh, can I ask you something? Of course. Why are you calling me? If they don't want me there, why involve me at all? There was a pause. Your mother left a will, Miss Mitchell, and there are some unusual provisions that require your presence for the reading. I can't discuss the details over the phone, but I can tell you that your attendance is legally required. Legally required? What does that mean? It means that regardless of your family's wishes, you have legal obligations that supersede their preferences. The will reading is scheduled for Monday morning at 10 a.m. in our offices. I was quiet for a long moment, processing everything. My mother was dead. My siblings didn't want me at her funeral. And apparently, there were legal matters that only I could handle. Mrs. Walsh, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. I'll do my best. Did my mother ever mention me? In recent years, I mean. Did she ever ask about me or say anything about wanting to reconcile? Another pause. This one felt different, more human. Miss Mitchell, I can't discuss the contents of your mother's will, but I can tell you that she spoke about you often. She kept track of your career, your life in Portland. She was very proud of you. Tears I'd been holding back for 3 years finally started to fall. She never called. She never reached out. Sometimes pride keeps us from doing what we know we should do. Your mother was a complicated woman, but she loved you very much. After I hung up, I sat in my apartment for hours, just thinking. The last time I'd seen my mother was at Christmas 3 years ago. We'd had a terrible fight about my decision to move to Portland, about my career choices, about the man I was dating at the time. Everything exploded that night. Harsh words were said. I told her I was tired of never being good enough, tired of being compared to David and Lisa, who had stayed in Chicago, gotten married, had kids, lived the life she wanted for me. She told me I was selfish and ungrateful. I told her maybe she was right, and maybe it was better if I just stayed away. Those were the last words we spoke to each other. Now she was gone, and I'd never get the chance to take them back. I called my boss and told him I needed emergency family leave. Then I booked a flight to Chicago for Thursday. I wasn't going to let my siblings dictate whether I could say goodbye to my mother. Whatever their reasons, whatever had happened in the 3 years since I'd been gone, she was still my mother. The flight to Chicago was turbulent, matching my emotional state. As we descended through the clouds, I could see the familiar skyline, the lake stretching out like a gray mirror. This city held so many memories, my childhood, my teenage years, my early 20s before everything went wrong. I rented a car at O'Hare and drove through the familiar streets. Chicago in November was cold and gray, the kind of weather that seeps into your bones. I'd booked a room at a small hotel near downtown, not wanting to deal with the complications of staying anywhere my family might expect to find me. That night, I drove past our old house in Lincoln Park. It was a beautiful 3-story brownstone that my father had bought when I was 10, before he died of cancer when I was 16. Mom had struggled to keep it after his death, working 2 jobs to make the mortgage payments. Looking at it now, I could see it had been recently painted. The small front garden was well maintained. Someone was still taking care of it. I parked across the street and just sat there, remembering. I could almost see myself at 17, arguing with Mom about curfew on the front steps, or at 22, coming home from college with my degree in art, so proud and excited to show her my portfolio, only to have her ask when I was going to get a real job. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Sarah, this is David. I heard you're in town. Don't come to the funeral. I'm serious. You'll only make things worse. Some things are better left alone." I stared at the message for a long time. David was my older brother, 32, married with 2 kids. He'd always been Mom's favorite, the responsible one, the one who did everything right. After Dad died, he'd stepped into that role, trying to be the man of the house, even though he was only 20 then. I typed back, "She was my mother too, David. I have every right to be there." His response came quickly. "You gave up that right when you walked away 3 years ago. Don't make this harder than it has to be." I put my phone away and drove back to my hotel. Tomorrow was Friday, the day before the funeral. I needed to figure out what I was going to do. Friday morning dawned gray and cold. I woke up in my hotel room feeling like I hadn't slept at all, though I must have at some point. The dreams had been vivid and painful, memories of my mother mixed with anxiety about seeing my family again. I decided to visit Mom's gravesite early, before anyone else might be there. The cemetery was on the south side, about a 20-minute drive from my hotel. As I walked through the grounds, looking for the Mitchell family plot, I felt a strange sense of peace. The November air was crisp but not bitter, and there was something comforting about the quiet. I found the plot easily. My father's headstone was already there, and next to it was a fresh grave with flowers. Someone had been there recently. The flowers were beautiful, expensive-looking arrangements, but what caught my attention was a small bouquet of daisies, simple and obviously hand-picked. They looked out of place among the formal arrangements. There was a small card with the daisies. I bent down to read it. "Thank you for everything. You saved my life, M." I stood there staring at that card for a long time. Who was M? What did they mean by, "You saved my life"? I wondered when you'd show up here. I spun around. Lisa was standing about 10 feet away, wearing a black coat and an expression I couldn't read. My younger sister had always been the most like Mom, practical, organized, and never afraid to speak her mind. At 26, she was a nurse at Northwestern Memorial Hospital, married to her college boyfriend, with a 1-year-old daughter. "Lisa." I didn't know what else to say. "You look good, Sarah. Portland's been treating you well." "Thank you. You look good too." And she did. Motherhood suited her. She looked more mature, more settled than when I'd seen her last. We stood there in awkward silence for a moment, both looking at Mom's grave. "Who's M?" I asked, pointing to the daisies. Lisa's expression shifted, became guarded. "I don't know. Someone's been leaving flowers like that for about 6 months. Always daisies, always signed M. Mom never talked about it." 6 months? But Mom just died yesterday. "No, Sarah. She died yesterday, but she'd been sick for a while. Didn't you know?" My heart sank. "Sick? What do you mean sick?" Lisa looked at me with something that might have been pity. She had a heart condition. The doctors diagnosed it about 8 months ago. She had surgery, medication, the whole thing. It was touch and go for a while. But she was only 58, and no one told me? She made us promise not to call you. She said you'd made your choice, and she wasn't going to guilt you into coming back. I felt like the ground was shifting under my feet. "Lisa, I would have come. If I'd known she was sick, I would have dropped everything and come home." "Would you have? Really? Because you didn't come for Christmas last year or the year before. You didn't call on her birthday. You sent a card, Sarah. A card." The accusation in her voice stung because it was true. After our fight, I'd been too proud, too hurt to reach out. And as time went on, it became easier to stay away than to face the awkwardness of reconnecting. "I was angry," I said quietly, "and hurt, and stupid, but I never stopped loving her." Lisa's expression softened slightly. "I know, and she knew that too. But Sarah, you need to understand. The last 3 years have been hard, really hard. Mom struggled with depression after you left. She blamed herself for driving you away." "She didn't drive me away. We both said things we shouldn't have said. Maybe. But she carried that guilt every day. And when she got sick, it got worse. She kept saying she might die without ever seeing you again, without ever making things right. I started crying then, standing there in the cemetery with my sister. Why didn't someone call me? Why didn't you call me? Because she made us promise. And because honestly, we were angry too. You just disappeared, Sarah. You moved across the country and acted like we didn't exist. I sent cards. I called on birthdays. Duty calls. 5-minute conversations where you asked how everyone was, but never really listened to the answers. David's marriage was falling apart last year. Did you know that? He and Jennifer almost got divorced, and my daughter was born premature and spent 2 weeks in the NICU. Did you know any of that? I didn't. The calls had been perfunctory, surface level. I'd been going through the motions of staying in touch without really connecting. Lisa, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. She sighed. I know you are, and I'm not trying to make you feel worse, but you need to understand what Saturday is going to be like. A lot of people are going to be there. Mom's friends, her colleagues from the hospital where she worked, people from church, and they all know the story. They know about the daughter who moved away and never came back. What story? What do you mean? Mom worked at Chicago General as a patient advocate for the last 5 years. Did you know that? She helped families navigate the medical system, especially families who couldn't afford good care. She was beloved there, Sarah. They're naming a wing after her. I stared at her. I didn't know she was working at a hospital. Last I heard, she was still at the insurance company. She quit that job 4 years ago, said she wanted to do something that mattered. She worked with cancer families mostly, people going through what we went through with Dad. She was really good at it. This was a version of my mother I didn't know. The woman I remembered was practical, sometimes harsh, focused on security and stability. The idea of her leaving a stable job to help people didn't fit with my memories. There's something else you should know, Lisa continued, about the will reading on Monday. David and I aren't invited. Wait, what? That doesn't make sense. The lawyer said it was just for you. Something about specific provisions that only concern you. David's furious about it. Lisa, I have no idea what's in Mom's will. I don't want anything that should go to you guys. You were here, you took care of her. Whatever it is, we can work it out. She studied my face for a moment. You really don't know, do you? Know what? About the money, Sarah. About what Mom's been doing. What money? What are you talking about? Lisa looked around the cemetery, as if checking to make sure we were still alone. Mom had money, Sarah. A lot of money. More than any of us realized. When she got sick and had to update her insurance information, some things came to light. Investments, savings accounts, life insurance policies we didn't know about. How much money are we talking about? Enough to make David very interested in what that lawyer has to say to you on Monday. Before I could ask more questions, Lisa's phone rang. She looked at the caller ID and sighed. That's my babysitter. I have to go. Sarah, I'm not going to tell you not to come tomorrow, but I want you to be prepared. David's really angry and some of Mom's friends. They might not be welcoming. I understand. Do you? Because this isn't just about family drama anymore. There's money involved now, and David's been struggling financially. His construction business has been slow, and with 2 kids, Lisa, I don't care about money. I just want to say goodbye to Mom. She started to walk away, then turned back. Sarah? That bouquet of daisies? I lied. I do know who M is. Who? Her name is Maria Santos. She's 17 years old, and Mom paid for her cancer treatment when her family couldn't afford it. She's been cancer-free for 6 months. Lisa walked away, leaving me standing alone at my mother's grave, trying to process everything I'd learned. My mother had been sick. She'd been helping people, maybe saving lives, and apparently she'd been keeping secrets, financial secrets, that were making my brother very nervous about what I might inherit. I looked down at the simple bouquet of daisies and felt like I was meeting my mother for the first time. Saturday morning arrived gray and cold, typical Chicago November weather. I'd spent Friday night going through old photos on my phone, pictures of Mom from happier times. There was one from my college graduation where she was smiling so proudly, her arm around my shoulders. Looking at it now, I could see something in her eyes I'd missed then. Worry, maybe, or a kind of protective love that I'd interpreted as criticism at the time. I chose a simple black dress and drove to St. Michael's Catholic Church 45 minutes early. I wanted to see Mom before the service, to have a private moment to say goodbye. The funeral director, a kind older man named Mr. Patterson, let me into the viewing room. She looked peaceful, smaller than I remembered. Someone had done her makeup beautifully, and she was wearing the navy blue dress she'd always loved, the one she wore to special occasions. Her hands were folded over a small silver cross that had been our grandmother's. "I'm sorry, Mom," I whispered, touching her hand. It was cold, but soft. "I'm sorry I was so stubborn. I'm sorry I stayed away. I love you, and I should have told you that every day." I stayed with her for about 20 minutes, just talking quietly, telling her about my life in Portland, about my job, about the things I'd wanted to share with her over the past 3 years, but had been too proud to call and say. At 1:30, people started arriving for the service. I took a seat in the back, hoping to avoid confrontations. The church filled up quickly. Mom had clearly touched a lot of lives. I recognized some faces from when I was younger, neighbors and family friends, but there were many people I didn't know. David arrived with his wife Jennifer and their 2 kids. He saw me immediately and his jaw tightened, but he didn't approach me. Lisa came in with her husband Tom and their baby. She gave me a small nod, but also kept her distance. What surprised me was the number of young people at the service. Teenagers, young adults, people who clearly hadn't known my mother when I was growing up. They filled nearly a third of the church, and many of them were crying. The service was beautiful. Father McKenna, who had been our parish priest for 20 years, spoke about Mom's devotion to helping others, especially in her recent years working at the hospital. Then something unexpected happened. He invited anyone who wanted to share memories to come forward. A young woman about my age went to the podium first. She was Latina, pretty, with tears streaming down her face. "My name is Carmen Santos," she said. "Mrs. Mitchell saved my daughter's life." I sat up straighter. Santos, like the M on the flowers. "My daughter Maria was diagnosed with leukemia when she was 16. We didn't have insurance, and the treatments were going to cost more than we could ever afford. I was cleaning Mrs. Mitchell's house. She hired me after she got sick, and one day she found me crying because the hospital had said they couldn't continue Maria's treatment without payment." Carmen paused, composing herself. Mrs. Mitchell asked me to explain what was happening. When I told her, she just nodded and said, "We'll figure this out." The next week, the hospital called and said Maria's treatment had been paid for, all of it. When I asked Mrs. Mitchell about it, she just said, "Maria's going to be fine, and that's all that matters." She wiped her eyes. "Maria is cancer-free now, and she's starting college next year." Mrs. Mitchell paid for that too. She said every child deserves a chance to live their dreams. Carmen returned to her seat, and another person came forward, then another. Story after story of my mother quietly helping people, paying medical bills, covering rent when someone was between jobs, buying groceries for families in need. It was like listening to stories about a stranger, except this stranger had my mother's face and name. A teenage boy spoke about how Mom had helped his family when his father was injured in a construction accident. An elderly woman talked about how Mom had driven her to chemotherapy appointments when she had no one else to help. A young couple described how Mom had paid the deposit on their first apartment when they were getting back on their feet. I was crying openly now, understanding for the first time what my mother's life had become after I left. She hadn't just been working at the hospital. She'd been using her own money, quietly and without recognition, to help people in crisis. After the service, people lingered in the church vestibule, sharing more memories and condolences. I was standing near the back, not sure whether to approach people or leave quietly, when a woman about Mom's age came up to me. "You must be Sarah," she said. "I'm Helen Rodriguez. I worked with your mother at the hospital." "It's nice to meet you, Mrs. Rodriguez. Your mother talked about you constantly. She was so proud of your success in Portland, your design work. She showed everyone the articles about your company that were published in those marketing magazines." "She did?" "Oh yes. She kept clippings in her desk drawer. She knew about every project you worked on, every client you landed. She followed your company's social media accounts. I felt like I might collapse. She never called. She never said she wanted to. So many times. But she was afraid you'd hang up on her, afraid she'd say the wrong thing again. She regretted that fight every single day, Sarah." "Mrs. Rodriguez, can I ask you something? All these stories people told about Mom helping families, where was she getting the money for all that?" Helen smiled sadly. "Your mother was very smart with money, much smarter than people realized. After your father died, she didn't just struggle to pay the mortgage. She got serious about investing. She took classes, studied the market, made some very good decisions, and she lived simply so she could give generously. But where—" "Sarah." David's voice cut through our conversation. He was standing behind me with Jennifer, and he looked angry. "We need to talk." Helen squeezed my arm. "It was lovely meeting you, dear. Your mother would be so happy you came." She walked away, leaving me alone with David and Jennifer. "You've got some nerve showing up here," David said quietly, but his voice was tense. "David, please, not here, not today." "When then? When you disappear for another 3 years? When you show up for the next funeral?" Jennifer put her hand on his arm. "David, honey, maybe this isn't the time." "It's exactly the time. Sarah, you need to know that whatever Mom left you in, that will, Lisa and I are going to contest it. You don't deserve anything. You weren't here." "I don't want anything that should be yours," I said. "I just wanted to say goodbye to Mom." "Bullshit. If you just wanted to say goodbye, you would have called 3 years ago. You would have been here when she was sick. You would have been here when she needed you." People were starting to stare. I could see Lisa approaching with a concerned expression. "David, I know you're angry with me and you have every right to be, but please don't do this here. Not at Mom's funeral." "You want to know what Mom's funeral should have been like? It should have been all 3 of her children standing together, supporting each other, honoring her memory. Instead, it's me wondering if my sister is here to grab whatever money she can get her hands on. That's not why I'm here." "Then why are you here, Sarah? Really? Because it sure as hell isn't because you cared about her. You didn't care enough to visit when she was alive." That hit me like a physical blow, partly because there was truth in it. I had stayed away, and now it was too late to make things right. "You're right," I said quietly. "I should have been here. I should have called. I should have visited. I should have been a better daughter. But David, she was still my mother, and I loved her, and I have every right to mourn her." "Mourn her? You're 3 years too late for that." Lisa finally reached us. "David, stop it. This isn't what Mom would have wanted, isn't it? She spent 3 years crying about Sarah, wondering what she did wrong, why her daughter hated her so much. And now, Sarah shows up looking for her inheritance." "I'm not looking for anything," I said, my voice rising slightly. "I didn't even know there was an inheritance until yesterday." "Right. That's why you flew here so fast when the lawyer called." I looked at my brother, really looked at him. He was thinner than when I'd seen him last, more stressed. There were lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before. Jennifer looked uncomfortable, like she wanted to be anywhere else. "David, what's really going on here? This isn't just about me missing the last 3 years. What are you not telling me?" His expression shifted, became defensive. "Nothing. I'm just tired of you acting like the victim when you're the one who left." "The construction business," I said suddenly, remembering what Lisa had told me. "You're in financial trouble. That's none of your business." "It is, if you're planning to contest Mom's will because you need money." "I need money? Sarah, I have 2 kids and a mortgage and a business that's been slow for 2 years because of the economy. Yeah, I could use some help. But more than that, I deserve it. I was here. I took care of her. And I'm grateful for that. David, whatever Mom left me, we can work something out. I'm not here to take food out of your children's mouths." "You don't get it," he said. "It's not about working something out. It's about what's right. And what's right is that the daughter who abandoned her mother doesn't get rewarded for it." People were definitely staring now. I could see Father McKenna approaching, probably to diffuse the situation. "I think we should all take a step back," Jennifer said quietly. "This is a lot of emotion and grief, and maybe we should talk about this later when we've all had time to process." "There's nothing to process," David said. "Sarah will go back to Portland after the will reading, and we'll deal with whatever legal mess she leaves behind." "What if I don't go back to Portland?" I asked. Everyone stared at me. I hadn't planned to say that. It just came out. "What do you mean?" Lisa asked. "What if I stayed? What if I moved back to Chicago?" David laughed bitterly. "Right. You're going to give up your fancy life in Portland to come back here? Why would you do that?" I looked around the church, at all the people who had loved my mother, at all the lives she had touched. Because maybe I finally understand what I lost when I left, and maybe it's not too late to find it again. Monday morning came too quickly. I'd spent Sunday walking around Chicago, visiting places that held memories. The park where Dad used to take us on Sundays, the ice cream shop where Mom would bring us for good report cards, the library where I'd spent hours as a teenager, dreaming of my future. Now that future felt uncertain. The conversation with David kept replaying in my mind, along with all the stories I'd heard about Mom at the funeral. I was beginning to understand that the woman who had raised me and the woman who had died were different people. Or maybe I'd been too young and self-centered to really see her clearly when I was growing up. The offices of Walsh and Associates were in downtown Chicago, in one of those old buildings that had been beautifully renovated. Mrs. Walsh met me in the lobby. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe 45, with kind eyes and a professional demeanor that somehow managed to be warm. "Miss Mitchell, thank you for coming. I know this has been a difficult few days for you. Thank you for arranging everything, and for being so patient with our family drama." She smiled. "Family dynamics around inheritance can be complicated. Shall we go upstairs?" Her office was on the 15th floor, with a beautiful view of the lake. She offered me coffee, which I accepted gratefully. I hadn't slept well in days. "Before we begin," she said, settling behind her desk with a thick file, "I want you to know that your mother spent a lot of time thinking about this will. She revised it several times over the past year, always with the goal of doing what she felt was right for everyone involved. Mrs. Walsh, I need to be honest with you. My brother and sister are very upset about being excluded from this reading. Whatever Mom left me, I want to make sure they're taken care of too." "I appreciate that sentiment, Miss Mitchell, but I think you should understand what your mother's wishes were before you make any decisions." She opened the file and pulled out several documents. "Your mother's estate is valued at approximately $1.2 million. I nearly choked on my coffee. "I'm sorry, what?" She was a very savvy investor, particularly after your father's death. She also had substantial life insurance policies and some property investments that appreciated significantly over the years. I had no idea she had that kind of money. Very few people did. Your mother lived modestly and was very private about her financial affairs. However, as you heard at the funeral, she was quite generous with her resources when it came to helping others." Mrs. Walsh pulled out the actual will document. "The bulk of the estate, approximately $900,000, is being left to you, Miss Mitchell. But that's not fair. David and Lisa should—" "Please, let me finish. Your siblings are not being excluded from the will. Your mother left each of them $50,000, along with specific personal items in the family home, which is to be sold with the proceeds split between them." I was quiet, trying to process this. "Mrs. Walsh, why did she leave so much to me? I wasn't here. I didn't take care of her." She smiled sadly. "Your mother included a letter explaining her reasoning. Would you like me to read it?" I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Mrs. Walsh pulled out an envelope marked, "For Sarah," in my mother's handwriting. She opened it and began to read. "My dearest Sarah, if you're hearing this, it means I'm gone, and I pray that you're there to hear it. I know the past 3 years have been difficult, and I know you probably blame yourself for the fight we had. Please don't. We both said things we didn't mean, and we both were too proud to pick up the phone and make it right. I'm leaving you the majority of my estate not because I love you more than David and Lisa, but because I believe you're the one who will use it the way I want it to be used. David is practical and responsible, and Lisa is caring and nurturing. But you, Sarah, you have something special. You have the ability to see what people need and find creative ways to help them. I've been watching your work in Portland, following your company's success. I know about the pro bono work you do for nonprofits, the free design services you provide to small businesses that can't afford professional marketing. You think I don't know about these things, but I do. I'm so proud of the woman you've become. The money I'm leaving you comes with a responsibility, sweetheart. I want you to use it to help people, the way I tried to do in my final years. There are so many families struggling with medical bills, so many children who need a chance, so many people who just need someone to believe in them. I've included a list of the families I was helping, along with details about their situations. Some of them will need ongoing support. Others might need help in the future. I trust you to make good decisions about how to continue this work. I also want you to know that I never stopped loving you, never stopped being proud of you, never stopped hoping that someday we would find our way back to each other. I'm sorry we ran out of time in this life, but I believe love is stronger than death, and I'll be watching over you always. Please take care of your brother and sister. They're angry now, but they love you too. We're family, and family finds a way to forgive and move forward. All my love, always and forever, Mom." By the time Mrs. Walsh finished reading, I was crying so hard I could barely breathe. The letter was everything I'd wanted to hear from my mother for 3 years, and everything I'd been too afraid to hope for. "There's more," Mrs. Walsh said gently, giving me a tissue. "Your mother also left specific instructions about how she wanted you to handle the inheritance." She pulled out another document. "She wanted you to move back to Chicago and establish a foundation. the Margaret Mitchell Family Support Foundation. The foundation would provide financial assistance to families facing medical crises, educational expenses, and other emergency needs. She wanted me to move back. She hoped you would. She felt that the work could best be done here, where she'd already established relationships with the hospital and various community organizations. But the choice is yours, of course. I sat there for a long time, just thinking. My mother had seen something in me that I wasn't sure I saw in myself. She believed I could carry on her work, that I could make a difference in people's lives. Mrs. Walsh, what happens if I don't accept the inheritance? The money would be distributed equally among all 3 siblings, but the foundation would not be established. Your mother's charitable work would end. I thought about Maria Santos, the 17-year-old who left daisies on Mom's grave. I thought about Carmen Santos, cleaning houses to try to pay for her daughter's cancer treatment. I thought about all the families Mom had helped, all the lives she'd touched. There's something else, Mrs. Walsh said. Your mother left a safety deposit box with additional instructions and some personal items. She wanted you to look through those before making your final decision about the inheritance. An hour later, I was at the bank, sitting in a small private room with the contents of Mom's safety deposit box spread out on the table. There were photos I'd never seen, pictures of me from my college years, printouts of articles about my design work, even screenshots of my company's social media posts. She really had been following my life from afar. There was also a folder labeled Families Helped 2023-2024 with detailed information about dozens of people she'd assisted. Medical bills, rent payments, educational expenses, car repairs so people could get to work. The list went on and on. But what struck me most was a small notebook filled with her handwriting. It appeared to be a journal of sorts, documenting her thoughts about helping people. Paid Maria's treatment today. Carmen cried and wanted to know how she could ever repay me. I told her she could repay me by making sure Maria gets to live the life she deserves. Some things are more valuable than money. The Johnson family's rent is behind again. Tom's been out of work for 3 months since the accident. Sometimes people just need a bridge to get them to the other side of their troubles. Sarah called today, just for 5 minutes, asking how everyone was doing. I wanted to tell her about the foundation work, about how fulfilling it's been to help people, but I was afraid she'd think I was trying to make her feel guilty for staying away. I miss her so much. I wish I knew how to fix what's broken between us. Dr. Martinez says my heart condition is getting worse. I'm scared I'm running out of time. There are so many people I'm still helping, so many families who depend on this support. What will happen to them when I'm gone? I keep thinking about Sarah. She has such a good heart, such creativity in solving problems. Maybe she could continue this work if she understood how important it is. The last entry was dated just 2 weeks before she died. Made another revision to the will today. I know David and Lisa will be upset that Sarah is getting the bulk of the money, but I believe she's the one who will use it to help others. David is focused on his family and his business, which is as it should be. Lisa has her hands full with little Emma and her nursing career. They're both good people, but Sarah has something different, a calling to help others, even if she doesn't realize it yet. I pray I'm making the right decision. I pray she comes home. I closed the notebook and sat there in the silence of the bank's private room. My mother had been thinking about me, worrying about me, hoping for reconciliation right up until the end. And she'd seen something in me that I was only beginning to understand myself. My phone buzzed. A text from Lisa. David wants to meet tonight to discuss contesting the will. Can you come to my house at 7? I think we need to talk this through as a family. I looked at the time. It was 3 p.m. I had 4 hours to decide what to say to my siblings, 4 hours to figure out how to honor my mother's wishes while also healing the rift in our family. I drove to Lincoln Park, to the house where we'd grown up. I sat in my car across the street, just like I had on Thursday night, but this time I got out and walked up to the front door. I still had a key. Mom had never asked for it back after our fight. The house was exactly as I remembered it, but smaller somehow. I walked through the rooms, touching familiar objects, remembering happier times. In Mom's bedroom, I found her jewelry box, the same one she'd had since I was a child. Inside was the silver locket Dad had given her for their anniversary, the one with pictures of all 3 of us kids inside. There was also a recent photo I'd never seen. It was from my company's website, a picture of me at the Portland Business Awards ceremony, where we'd won recognition for our nonprofit work. Someone had printed it out and tucked it behind the mirror in the jewelry box. I sat on Mom's bed and called my boss in Portland. Sarah, how are you holding up? I know this must be incredibly difficult. Jim, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. If I wanted to relocate the company to Chicago, how feasible would that be? There was a pause. Well, it's not impossible. Most of our clients work with us remotely anyway. We'd need to figure out the logistics, and we'd probably lose a few local accounts, but Sarah, are you thinking about moving back? I might be. I'm not sure yet. But I wanted to know if it was even possible. It's possible. It would be a big change, but it's possible. Can I ask what's prompting this? I looked around my mother's bedroom, at the photos on her dresser, at the Bible on her nightstand with bookmarks in the pages about forgiveness and love. I think I might have found my purpose, Jim, and it might be here in Chicago. After we hung up, I spent another hour in the house, going through Mom's things, trying to understand the woman she'd become. In her desk, I found thank you cards from dozens of families, photos of children she'd helped, letters from grateful parents. It was like discovering a secret life of kindness and generosity. At 6:30, I drove to Lisa's house in Evanston. It was a small but well-maintained bungalow with a playground in the backyard. Lisa answered the door with baby Emma on her hip. Sarah, I'm glad you came. David's already here. He's pretty worked up. I could hear David's voice from the living room before I even walked in. He was on the phone with someone, talking about lawyers and legal challenges. When he saw me, he ended the call abruptly. So, he said, not bothering with pleasantries, how much did she leave you? David, can we sit down and talk about this like adults? We can talk after you tell me how much money you're walking away with while Lisa and I split the scraps. Lisa sighed. David, please, this isn't helping anyone. It's helping me understand exactly how much our mother valued the daughter who abandoned her versus the children who stayed and took care of her. I took a deep breath. She left me $900,000. The room went completely silent. David's face went white, then red. $900,000, he repeated slowly. Lisa, did you hear that? Our sister, who couldn't be bothered to visit, gets $900,000. David, let me explain. Explain what? How you manipulated a sick old woman into changing her will? How you played the victim so well that she felt guilty enough to give you everything? I didn't even know she was sick, I said, my voice rising. I didn't know about any of this until Thursday. Bullshit. You knew exactly what you were doing when you stayed away. You knew she'd blame herself, knew she'd feel guilty, knew she'd try to make it up to you somehow. That's not what happened, and you know it. Lisa stood up, still holding Emma. Both of you stop it. This is exactly what Mom wouldn't have wanted. David, sit down. Sarah, tell us everything the lawyer said. All of it. I spent the next 30 minutes explaining the will, the foundation Mom wanted me to establish, the families she'd been helping. I showed them the notebook from the safety deposit box, read them some of the entries about her work. When I finished, David was quiet for a long time. So she wanted you to be some kind of charity worker, he said finally. She wanted me to continue the work she'd been doing, helping families in crisis. And what about Lisa and me? What about our families? You each get $50,000 plus the house. David, that's not nothing. It's not $900,000 either. Lisa had been reading through Mom's notebook while we talked. David, look at this, she said quietly. Look at all the people she helped. The Santos family, the Johnsons, the Williams family when their son needed surgery. She was using her money to save lives. That's great, Lisa. Really heartwarming. But I have 2 kids and a failing business, and my mother just gave my inheritance to my sister who disappeared for 3 years. She didn't give it to me to keep, I said. She gave it to me to give away, to continue her work. Right. So you get to play the hero with Mom's money while Lisa and I struggle to pay our bills. I looked at my brother, really looked at him. His hair was graying at the temples, his face was lined with stress, and his clothes were worn but clean. He looked like a man who'd been carrying too much weight for too long. David, what if you didn't have to struggle? What if there was a way for all of us to honor Mom's wishes and take care of our families too? What do you mean? What if we ran the foundation together? What if instead of me moving back to Chicago alone, we all worked together to continue Mom's charitable work? I don't know anything about running a charity, but you know about construction, about building things, about managing projects. Lisa knows about healthcare, about working with families in crisis, and I know about marketing, about raising awareness, about organizing programs. Lisa looked up from the notebook. You mean like a family business? But for helping people instead of making profit? Exactly. Mom left detailed notes about the families she was helping. There's a whole network of people who need ongoing support. We could establish the foundation, create a board of directors, the three of us, plus some community leaders. We could make this bigger than what Mom was doing alone. David was quiet, thinking. What about salaries? If we're running a foundation, we can't work for free. Foundation directors get paid reasonable salaries. It's not going to make us rich, but it would be enough to live on. And David, your construction business, what if the foundation became one of your biggest clients? We could fund home repairs for families in need, accessibility modifications for disabled individuals, all kinds of projects that would give your business steady work. And I could reduce my hours at the hospital, Lisa said, getting excited. I could work part-time and spend more time with Emma while also doing foundation work. Sarah, this could actually work. But it would mean all of us committing to stay in Chicago. It would mean working together. Really working together for the first time since we were kids. David was still skeptical. And you'd be willing to give up your life in Portland for this? I've been thinking about that since Saturday. What life am I giving up, really? A job I like but don't love? An apartment I can barely afford? A city where I know people but don't have deep connections? David, I've been running away from my family, from my roots, from who I'm supposed to be. Maybe it's time to stop running. Emma started fussing, and Lisa rocked her gently. There's something else we should consider, she said. Mom's house. If we're going to run a foundation, we'll need office space. What if instead of selling the house, we converted part of it into foundation headquarters? We could preserve Mom's memory while using it for the work she cared about. The zoning might be an issue, David said, but I could see he was warming to the idea. But if we applied for the right permits, it could work. We could renovate the first floor for offices and keep the upper floors as a residence for whoever wanted to live there. You mean you'd consider moving back into the house? I asked. Jennifer and I have been talking about downsizing anyway. The kids are getting older. They'll be going to college eventually. And if the foundation could provide steady work? He trailed off, thinking. David, I said carefully, I want you to know that if we do this, if we establish the foundation together, I'm not going to lord it over you that Mom left me the bulk of the money. We're partners in this, equal partners. Even though you're putting in $900,000 and Lisa and I are putting in $50,000 each, the money isn't the only valuable thing we're contributing. You're bringing business management skills and construction expertise. Lisa's bringing healthcare knowledge and community connections. I'm bringing marketing and organizational skills. This only works if we all contribute what we're good at. Lisa smiled. It's funny, isn't it? Mom always said we were stronger together than apart. Maybe she knew that leaving us this challenge would force us to figure out how to be a family again. Or maybe she just wanted to make sure her charitable work would continue, David said. But he was smiling slightly too. Maybe both, I said. We talked for another 2 hours, working through the logistics, the challenges, the possibilities. By the time I left Lisa's house, we had the rough outline of a plan. We would meet with Mrs. Walsh later in the week to discuss the legal requirements for establishing a foundation. David would look into the zoning issues for converting Mom's house. Lisa would reach out to some of her contacts at the hospital to understand what kind of ongoing needs existed in the community. And I would start the process of relocating my life from Portland to Chicago. As I drove back to my hotel that night, I felt something I hadn't felt in 3 years. I felt like I was going home. The next morning, I called Mrs. Walsh and told her I was accepting the inheritance and wanted to move forward with establishing the Margaret Mitchell Family Support Foundation. Then I called my landlord in Portland and gave notice on my apartment. I spent the rest of the week in Chicago, meeting with Lisa and David, touring Mom's house, talking to some of the families she'd been helping. Each conversation reinforced my belief that we were making the right decision. On Friday, I got a call from Carmen Santos. Miss Mitchell? This is Carmen Santos, Maria's mother. I spoke at your mother's funeral. Of course, Mrs. Santos. How is Maria doing? She's doing wonderfully, thank you. Miss Mitchell, I heard from someone at the hospital that you might be continuing your mother's work. Is that true? Yes. We're in the process of establishing a foundation to help families the way my mother did. I wanted you to know that there are many people who would like to help. Your mother touched so many lives, and we want to give back. Maria wants to volunteer. And I know other families who would like to help too. That would be wonderful, Mrs. Santos. We're going to need all the help we can get. "Your mother was an angel, Miss Mitchell. She saved my daughter's life, and she gave our family hope when we had none. I just wanted you to know that her work will continue not just because of your foundation, but because of all the people she inspired to help others." After we hung up, I sat in Mom's kitchen, my kitchen now, and felt her presence strongly. The afternoon light was streaming through the windows, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. It felt peaceful, purposeful. My phone rang. It was David. "Sarah, I just got off the phone with the city planning office. The zoning change is possible, but it's going to take some time and paperwork." "That's okay. We're not in a rush. I've been thinking about something. What are we going to call the foundation offices? I mean, what's going to be on the sign outside?" I smiled. "I think we should call it the Margaret Mitchell Family Center, not just because it was Mom's idea, but because it's about families helping families." "I like that," David said. "Sarah, I owe you an apology. I was so angry about feeling left out, so worried about money, that I didn't really listen to what you were trying to do. Mom was right to trust you with this. She was right to trust all of us with this. David, we're going to do something amazing here. We're going to help so many people." "Yeah," he said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. "We are." 6 months later, the Margaret Mitchell Family Center opened its doors in our childhood home. The first floor had been converted into offices, a meeting room, and a small library with resources for families in crisis. The kitchen became a space where we could provide meals for families spending long days at the hospital. Lisa managed our healthcare outreach programs, connecting families with resources and support during medical crises. David oversaw our housing assistance programs, coordinating repairs and modifications for families in need. And I handled fundraising, community outreach, and program development. We helped pay for cancer treatments, provided emergency rent assistance, funded educational expenses for kids whose families couldn't afford them, and created support groups for families going through various crises. But more than that, we became a family again. The three of us, working together towards something larger than ourselves, had found our way back to each other. We had Sunday dinners at the center, holiday celebrations with the families we served, and a sense of purpose that connected us to Mom's legacy. On the first anniversary of Mom's death, we held a memorial service at the center. Maria Santos, now 18 and thriving in college, spoke about the difference Mom's help had made in her life. Carmen Santos, who had become one of our most dedicated volunteers, talked about how the foundation had allowed her to give back to other families in crisis. But the moment that moved me most was when David stood up to speak. "A year ago, I was angry," he said, looking out at the room full of people Mom had helped and people we were continuing to help. "I was angry at my sister for staying away, angry at my mother for choices I didn't understand, angry at life for being harder than I thought it should be. But this year has taught me something important. Anger doesn't build anything. Love builds things. Hope builds things. And family, real family, builds things together." He looked at Lisa and me. "My mother left us more than money. She left us a purpose, a way to honor her memory by helping others. And she left us a way to find our way back to each other. I miss her every day, but I'm grateful every day for what she taught us about love, about service, and about the power of family to heal and to help." That night, after everyone had gone home, the three of us sat in Mom's old kitchen, now the heart of the center, sharing stories and memories. We talked about the families we'd helped, the programs we wanted to expand, the difference we were making in people's lives. "Do you think Mom would be proud of what we've built?" Lisa asked. I looked around the room, at the photos on the walls of families we'd helped, at the thank you cards from children whose medical bills we'd paid, at the certificates from community organizations recognizing our work. "I think she'd be amazed," I said. "I think she hoped we'd continue her work, but I don't think she imagined it would become this big, this meaningful, or that it would bring us back together," David added. "Maybe she did," Lisa said quietly. "Maybe she knew exactly what she was doing when she structured that will the way she did. Maybe she knew that giving us a shared purpose would force us to figure out how to be a family again." I smiled, thinking about the woman I'd thought I knew, and the woman I'd discovered through her journals, her charitable work, and the stories of the people she'd helped. "I think our mother was a lot wiser than any of us realized," I said. As I drove home that night, to the small apartment I'd rented a few blocks from the center, I felt a sense of peace and purpose I'd never experienced before. I'd come home to bury my mother, and instead I'd found my calling, my family, and myself. The next morning, I woke up early and drove to the cemetery. I brought fresh daisies, like Maria Santos still did every week, and I sat by Mom's grave for a while, updating her on the center's progress, on David and Lisa, on all the lives we were touching because of her vision and generosity. "We're doing it, Mom," I said quietly. "We're continuing your work, and we're doing it together. Your stubborn, complicated, loving children figured out how to be a family again. I think you'd be proud of us. I know I'm proud to be your daughter." The November wind rustled through the trees, and I felt, for just a moment, like she was there with me, smiling and proud and at peace. As I placed the daisies next to her headstone, I noticed someone approaching from across the cemetery. It was an elderly man I didn't recognize, walking slowly with a cane. He stopped a respectful distance away and waited. "I'm sorry to interrupt," he said when I looked up. "Are you Sarah Mitchell?" "Yes, I am." "How did you know? You look just like your mother did at your age. I'm Robert Chen. Your mother helped my grandson through a very difficult time." I stood up, brushing dirt from my knees. "Please, come closer. Tell me about your grandson." Mr. Chen approached slowly, his eyes moving between me and Mom's headstone. Tommy was 15 when he was diagnosed with bone cancer. The treatments were experimental, very expensive. My daughter and her husband had already mortgaged their house, sold their cars, but it wasn't enough. He paused, leaning heavily on his cane. "Your mother heard about our situation through the hospital. She didn't know us from anyone, but she called my daughter one day and said she wanted to help. She paid for Tommy's entire treatment, surgery, chemotherapy, everything. Over $200,000. My breath caught. I had read about Tommy in Mom's notebook, but hearing the story from his family made it real in a way that written words couldn't capture. "Tommy's 21 now," Mr. Chen continued, his voice thick with emotion. "He's in college, studying to be a doctor. He wants to help kids with cancer, just like your mother helped him. She saved his life, Miss Mitchell, and she changed the direction of our entire family." "Mr. Chen, did my mother ever ask for anything in return? Any recognition or thanks?" He shook his head. "That was the remarkable thing. She made my daughter promise never to tell anyone where the money came from. She said publicity would ruin it, that helping people wasn't about getting credit. The only reason I know it was her is because my daughter saw her name on some of the hospital paperwork by accident." We stood in comfortable silence for a moment, both looking at Mom's grave. "I come here every month," Mr. Chen said. "I bring flowers, and I tell her about Tommy's progress. I tell her about his grades, his girlfriend, his plans for medical school. I know she can't hear me, but it feels important to keep her updated." "I think she can hear you," I said softly. "I think she knows how well Tommy is doing, and I think it makes her happy." "Miss Mitchell, I heard you're continuing your mother's work. Is that true?" "Yes, we've established a foundation. My brother and sister and I are working together to help families the way Mom did." His face lit up. "That's wonderful. Tommy would like to volunteer when he's home from college. He's always said he wanted to give back somehow. We'd love to have him. We need young people who understand what these families are going through." Mr. Chen reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a worn envelope. "I wrote this letter to your mother last month, but I never got the chance to give it to her. Would you read it? I think it might help you understand what she meant to people." I took the envelope with trembling hands. "Are you sure you want me to read this? It seems very personal." "I'm sure. I think your mother would want you to know." I opened the envelope carefully. The letter was written in shaky handwriting on simple notebook paper. "Dear Mrs. Mitchell, I don't know if you remember me, but you saved my grandson Tommy's life 3 years ago when you paid for his cancer treatment. I wanted to write to tell you that he is doing so well. He made the dean's list again this semester, and he's been accepted to volunteer at the children's cancer ward at his college hospital. But I also wanted to tell you something else. When Tommy was sick, our whole family was falling apart. The stress, the fear, the financial pressure, it was tearing us up inside. My daughter stopped sleeping, stopped eating. My son-in-law was working 3 jobs and still couldn't keep up with the bills. I felt helpless, like I was watching my family destroy itself. When you stepped in and helped us, you didn't just save Tommy's life. You saved our whole family. You gave us hope when we had none. You showed us that there are still good people in the world, people who care about strangers, people who understand that sometimes we all need a helping hand. Tommy asks about you sometimes. He wants to meet you someday, to thank you in person. I tell him that the best way to thank you is to become the kind of person who helps others the way you helped us. I think he's going to do that. I think you gave him more than medical treatment. You gave him a model of what it means to be truly generous. Thank you for everything you did for our family. Thank you for teaching my grandson that the world is full of kindness if you know where to look for it. Thank you for showing all of us what love looks like when it's put into action. With all our gratitude, Robert Chen. By the time I finished reading, I was crying again. Mr. Chen was wiping his eyes too. She never knew, I said. She never knew how much she meant to your family. I think she did know, in her heart. That's why she kept helping people, even when she got sick. She understood that kindness creates more kindness, that helping one person helps everyone connected to that person. We talked for another 20 minutes, standing there by Mom's grave. Mr. Chen told me more about Tommy, about his plans to specialize in pediatric oncology, about how he'd started a support group for teenage cancer patients at his college. He told me about other families Mom had helped, people whose stories I hadn't heard at the funeral. There's a whole network of us, he said. People your mother helped who stay in touch with each other now. We call ourselves Margaret's Families. We have a Facebook group where we share updates about our children, our lives, the ways we're trying to pay forward what she did for us. I had no idea. Would you like to join the group? I think the families would love to meet you and hear about the foundation. I nodded, unable to speak. The idea that Mom had created this community of connected families, this network of people committed to helping others, was overwhelming. After Mr. Chen left, I sat by Mom's grave for another hour, just processing everything I'd learned. My phone buzzed with a text from David. Emergency at the center. Can you come in? I drove to the family center wondering what kind of emergency might need my attention. When I walked in, I found David and Lisa in the main office with a young woman about my age and 2 small children. Sarah, this is Jennifer Walsh, Lisa said. Not the lawyer, different Jennifer. She needs our help. Jennifer Walsh was thin and tired looking, with worry lines that seemed too deep for someone so young. Her children, a boy about 6 and a girl about 4, were sitting quietly in chairs that were too big for them, clutching worn, stuffed animals. Ms. Mitchell, Jennifer said, standing up. I'm sorry to bother you, but Mrs. Rodriguez at the hospital said you might be able to help us. I sat down across from her. Tell me what's going on. My husband was in a car accident 2 weeks ago. He's in intensive care, and the doctors don't know if he's going to make it. I've been at the hospital every day, and I can't work. I'm behind on rent, behind on bills, and I don't know what to do. She started crying, trying to keep quiet so she wouldn't upset her children. I never asked for help before. We always managed on our own. But I don't know where else to turn. I looked at David and Lisa, then back at Jennifer and her children. This was exactly the kind of situation Mom would have handled immediately, without hesitation. Jennifer, we're going to help you, I said. David, can you call our contact at Commonwealth Edison and set up emergency assistance for her utilities? Lisa, can you connect with the hospital social worker to see what other resources might be available? What about rent? Jennifer asked. I'm 3 weeks behind, and my landlord is threatening eviction. We'll take care of the rent, I said, and we'll set up a fund to help with groceries and other expenses while your husband is recovering. I don't know how to thank you. I don't know when I'll be able to pay you back. You don't need to pay us back. You just need to take care of your family and be there for your husband. That's what my mother would have wanted. As we worked out the details of Jennifer's assistance package, I felt Mom's presence strongly. This was what she had been doing for years, stepping in during people's darkest moments and providing hope. This was the work she had entrusted to us, and we were rising to meet it. After Jennifer left with her children, the 3 of us sat in the office, processing what had just happened. That felt good, David said. Really good. Like we were doing exactly what we're supposed to be doing. It felt like Mom was here with us, Lisa added. Like she was guiding us through it. I smiled, thinking about Mr. Chen's letter, about Tommy's recovery, about the network of families Mom had created through her generosity. I think she is here with us. I think she's in every family we help, every life we touch, every moment when we choose kindness over indifference. So what's next? David asked. What other families are waiting for our help? I pulled out the list Mom had left us, the detailed notes about ongoing cases and new referrals. About 30 families are on our immediate help list, and the hospital calls with new cases every week. Then we better get to work, Lisa said, rolling up her sleeves. And that's exactly what we did. I placed the daisies next to her headstone and walked back to my car, ready to start another day of carrying on her legacy of love, service, and hope.